Welcome. Quite simply, there is absolutely nothing to get out of this. Nothing at all. There's already no one. There is already no real separation. This is an exposure that simply points out what is already. Everything is already timelessly complete, without direction, dimension, reason, or purpose, or even intention. No significance or substantiality to anything. Substance is simply an appearance that is not real. Everything is not real. There is just simply what's appearing to happen for no reason at all, without real time or space or even consciousness. This is as it is, meaninglessly appearing, boundless, energetic, and free, whole and complete, without anyone saying so. Even the words whole and complete are just apparently wholeness appearing as that. There's already no real person having an experience, a separate experience, or any kind of experience for that matter. There's nothing to figure out. There's nothing to prove right or wrong, nothing to impress, nothing to improve, nothing to get, nowhere to arrive, no more or less anything than what simply is. This is intentionless freedom. And everything that's appearing to happen is out of any control. It's just simply energy, chaotically, spontaneously, and immediately appearing. This is all. There's already no one. Separation is just simply, it's suggested that separation is simply an appearance of energy pretending to be two. This is exposes that that is a dream. And what's left is what is already. That's all.
Hi, Alexis.
Hey,
I had a really intense dream this morning, and I dreamt that I was dying. It was this cold, dark lake, and I was terrified, but I knew I had to let go, and so I just submerged myself into it head first, and that was my death. And it was complete void. I didn't feel anything, and then out of that void of blackness and darkness, suddenly light, color, sound really vivid, and the world came back, people, voices, apparently. And it was terrifying. There was a lot of fear and there was this intensity in my body. Like I felt so much vibration and pulsation coursing throughout my limbs, head to toe, and I was terrified throughout the whole dream. And I felt like I was floating in space and they were completely out of control. And I woke up and I was like, holy shit, that's, you know, I thought I died and yet there was life. So like there's absolutely no boundary between life and death. And then I went to the bathroom and I was sitting on the toilet and I had this thought, oh, I'm sitting on the toilet, and suddenly that didn't make any sense at all. Like, what was even happening? Like, it completely, this is completely unknowable. And what's even happening? And I was making tea and I thought I'm making tea, and that didn't make sense. And I was just feeling really disoriented. Um, and then I was like, well, isn't this how it always already is? And yet my mind was trying to make something special out of that dream, like something happened, something changed, something shifted, but uh, because it felt so intense.
Yeah.
And but it suddenly became so clear that that whole idea of me thinking that I have this body that is changing and aging is just suddenly rendered completely nonsensical.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I guess I'm still kind of processing what that was. And also it all already feels like nothing happened.
No.
It was just a dream.
Yep. It's disappearing as a memory of an apparent.
Yeah.
Mm.
Alexis and everybody, hi. Hi. Um, in one of my spiritual whatsits, we had a lot of practices and so forth, and one of the things that would happen is that there would be the appearance of people um, going through certain motions, and in essence, just kind of learning the rules and then following them. And we would, and of course, all of us did that to some degree. Um, and we called that a good student act. It's basically getting the rules, getting kind of the lay of the land, and then just going that way.
Mm.
And I know that almost every meeting you speak about how there's absolutely nothing that you are not supposed to say. You can't say anything wrong. You can't ask anything wrong. Um, but will you talk about that for a minute? Does anything come up?
Well, perhaps what seems to come up is that life seems very, very exciting when I feel like I am a real me that's got something to do, and that I've got something that I can be getting on with, so I can move in a direction, hopefully a nice direction. Yeah.
You mean so that can be, I mean, that can appear as silence. It can appear as not
Mm.
asking questions that may be there, and it can appear as asking questions.
Mm.
Is,
Can
is
appear as
that,
anything, but
yeah,
with practices and exercises and
yeah,
studying journeys of going this way and that way,
yeah,
substances. It loves this dream there seems to be an in loveness with going in a direction. I need to go somewhere. I need to get somewhere. I need to do something.
yeah,
It's fascinated with the thrill of the hunt.
yeah. It's like a binky. Yeah.
What's revealed is there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere at all. There's not even a here.
But also what shows up is uh, like well, I guess it doesn't matter. Like anything, like there's no way to get this right. There's no
Yeah.
way, there's no one to get
There's
this right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no one to get this right or do it right. And
No.
yeah,
Yeah, there's already no one.
Yeah.
If there was someone, perhaps this could be God, right or wrong or something ridiculous. Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
as it is. It just is what is and isn't.
Yeah. And already no one has no rules to it. Like anything
There's
could
just,
be
yeah,
said,
there's no one, there's
anything
no
could
rules, there's
be
no guidelines, there's no navigating.
yeah.
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 Hey,
Hi.
my audio is through the phone because
Yeah.
my friend might start making noise and the tools will run outside. Is it? Just tell me if it gets loud and I'll step outside. Um, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna tell you like a bind I'm in the illusion in the story of life, just for the hell of it, since why not? So it seems, at least in my culture, you know, just prepend all the necessary appearance as they speak, just a parent culture, that there's like a really sacred value, maybe the highest value implicit anyway, is like working on oneself. Actually, anything can be forgiven as long as there's a mea culpa. And it's like, well, you know what? I really regret the impact, and I'm checking into rehab or whatever it is. As long as you say I'm working on myself, that's like a minimum necessary sign of being a good human or something. So I'm in this thing with my partner where there'll be a conflict or something, and she'll be like, you know, and I'll acknowledge, yeah, like that I was triggered and I did that thing or whatever, spoke in a particular way or something. And that we're already at like 16 or 20 apparents already. Again, just take the apparently sticker and put it everywhere. And then she'll be like, well, what are you going to do about it? Like what are you going to do to work on that? What do you know? And it's just like, there's no one doing anything. It's just not like that. But that's so triggering and offensive to like everybody, not just her. Like everybody in this culture wants you to at least be in the game of self-improvement. If you're in the game of self-improvement, you could be like a serial rapist and you do it again. You're like, oh, I'm really gonna do deeper therapy now. Now I'm really gonna turn a corner with this new book or whatever. People just will sign off on that. But even if you're not a serial rapist, if you just aren't buying into that narrative of like, I'm working on myself, you're kind of treated like one. So this is the imaginary bind that I find myself in a little bit.
Yeah, because
There's nobody in any bind or anything, but yeah, just talk
yeah.
to me about that. However you want.
Well, if you assert that you're working on yourself, you're sort of implying that everyone else has the ability to do that too. You're sort of reflecting and confirming that there's real individuality for other people as well. And people seem to like that because that validates them as a real individual that is seeing that someone is seeing themselves as important. That must mean that I'm important. It's a project.
It's even more dangerous though, because if you, on the contrary, if you say in the face of normal people in the normal paradigm, like I'm not here and I'm not going to work on myself because I can't, they won't actually hear the first part because they can't cognize I'm not a person. What will stick, what they'll tell their mom or their friend is he's not going to work on it. You know, they'll still think you're a person, but now you're an intransigent person who's not willing to even do this minimum standard we all agree of humility and self-work. So it's like not even, they might cover their ears against the threat to their own selfhood experience, but they'll still hear that you as a self are such a loathsome type of self that won't even try to improve yourself. So it's like you're really fucking stuck with it's not good for image, one could say.
Well, that's because perhaps there's a sense that someone is stuck in a relationship with someone who thinks they're an individual, but the individual experience thinks that it's not an individual, and it's trying to apply this as though if I have an understanding that there's no one and that there's no chooser, then maybe relationships will become easier to me. That's not
It's not so much it should be easier, but like in the face of someone saying, "What are you going to do about it?" Like, what do you say? You're like, you
yeah.
know, what do you
Because,
like?
yeah, even the words "there's no one to be doing" is not happening by anyone's choice.
Right, exactly. So there's no coaching or advising about this
Yeah.
because no one to coach or I just wanted commiseration and no one was talking. So I'm just going to tell you about this apparent bind. There's no meaning to any of it. It's all bullshit. but it's a compelling story, and I think I should get a little bit of sympathy over here. You know.
Well, basically, no one can apply no one is there to apply what's happening. So when it's exposed that there's no one, therefore there's no one to work on themselves, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden the so-called body and the illusory individual experience goes around saying there's no one, therefore I can't do anything. I just sort of hold my hands up and say I didn't do it, it wasn't me, because that would just be a total misinterpretation of there being no chooser, no one, no individuality, and so on.
Or it's just what's apparently happening when, it's just what's coming out.
Yeah, there is only ever what's appearing to happen. But when a so-called individual experience apparently gets a hold of what's being shared, it may subtly distort what's being said or heard, and then try and use it somehow and say, well, I didn't do anything, it wasn't me, I can't change, blah, blah, blah. There's already no one to be changing or doing or staying the same.
So suppose your neighbor came and knocked on your door and said, hey, you keep leaving trash in the hallway and I really need you to work on this. Like, okay, what are you going to do to work? What do you say to a direct request to like agree to self-improvement?
The response happens as it happens. Who knows?
Yeah.
There can still be an apology on behalf of no one.
Sure. Yeah. Just signing on to this plan for change is the thing, the sticking point. Apology is easy. That seems to happen. And it also seems to then get stuck at, I can't tell you I'm going to do this program of like, investigating my triggers or learning about the trauma. Or it's like, it just doesn't hold any water.
Yeah.
And I don't experience that I'm trying to use this message to sort of shield myself from something. It's just what comes out. It's like when I'm confronted with this direct sort of request to do something that doesn't make, it's like if somebody asked me to float above the ground, I'd be like, but I can't float above the ground. Like that doesn't make sense. So it's not me trying to take advantage of the laws of gravity to avoid their chore. It's just the expression of like what doesn't make sense,
Yeah. I guess everything that's happening is happening spontaneously, and no one knows what's going to happen. No one knows what has happened. No one knows what is happening. So there's just seemingly what's immediately and spontaneously happening. So when there's a request, there's some sort of response to that, but no one knows what's going to happen in a so-called future because there isn't one. There isn't even a now. So all that's seemingly happening is happening organically, immediacy, not even presently or now. It's just simply what is. So if someone asks you what's going to happen, well, or what can you do? What will you do? It's like, well, who the hell knows? So yes, but there's no navigating. So it's a sticky. It would seem to be a sticky situation in the dream world of individuality, and there isn't one already. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
it seems sticky in that dream.
There really isn't a helpful answer to that.
No, I just thought I'd chat with you.
There's no one to help. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And this difficulty also shows up in like, I get a call like, how late are you going to work at the shop tonight? It's like, even when I was still an obvious secret, it's like, I can't see the future. I have no idea what's going to happen. But there's this paradigm that seems to exist where people agree that we can sort of say what we're going to do. I have no idea how to say what I'm going to do, like what I'm going to eat for lunch or what I'm going to do. Like, I just don't even get that. Because it never, even my whole life, even in the dream of everything in the cultural paradigms, signing on to all of those, there was still this kind of confusing phenomenon of you say you're going to do one thing and a totally different thing happens. And people do this weird cognitive dissonance to dance around that, or more self-work then in order to try to square that circle, which is impossible. So yeah, there's just these like, and it doesn't matter. I just wanted to tell you in chat.
Yeah. I mean, planning obviously can still happen without anyone. It's not like all future orientated situations totally collapse. Planning, to go this way or that way, planning to go abroad or planning, blah, blah, blah. All goes on just.
Yeah.
But there's absolutely no.
But knowing what's going to happen is another story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm planning to see you in about 2.5 weeks. I hope you're getting excited.
Oh. More excited to see you than Tony, is that what you mean?
No, not more. Just excited, whatever. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah,
yeah.
Speaking of illusory future, yeah, it'll be nice to see you again.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll let somebody else bring their woes for healing and soothing touch, but I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Good to chat.
Yeah.
You too. Yeah. And my partner thinks that there are two layers, two realities. Like, yeah, I get that non-dual stuff, and that's like maybe like an absolute truth. But there's also this reality of like our apparent lives, and there's this belief in this split world where there's also the dream as real, and we have selfhood inside of it, even if in some absolute sense there isn't any selves. And it's just like, so then like just play the game well here, and I can totally get why that's compelling. Like try to make this story better, even if it is a story that can tend to, even I sometimes think that, and I certainly am asked to sort of think that way. And it's just like, I mean, there isn't any, I put all the apparentlys in, but it's just like this sense of like, well, maybe there's nothing happening, but it seems like it is. So let's pretend that it's real or something, or not pretend, it's just as real as it always seemed. So anyway, you know what I mean?
Yeah, in a dream, there may be a real sort of felt sense that there's a difference between what one might call artificial reality and natural reality, or samsara and nirvana. There might be the sense that there's a real difference, and what is exposed is that there is neither, actually. There's no such thing as anything. So there's no two separate realities, one where everything is relative and the other where everything is absolute, because absolute does not relate to relativity. It doesn't make sense. So there's no such thing as an absolute truth, because all truth and falsity would seem to live in a world of relativity. There's no truth or falsity. There's no real relativity. There just is absolute boundless freedom, which illusory appears as relativity. There's no difference and there's no sameness. Yeah. So in a dream, there may be feeling like one day I'll no longer be living in an artificial reality. I'll be living in a natural reality, or I'll die into the natural reality. It can't comprehend that there's no difference or sameness. There's no two already for there to be either.
There's no space for two. There's nowhere to put the other one or whatever.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's annoying though, because in most spiritual traditions, there's some background sense of like a benevolent universe in reality. Reality is never questioned, right? We never thought that there wasn't reality. So there's a sense that like if I'm a good person, then the story will play out in a more or less good way. Like, we'll get along. We won't split up before this baby comes, whatever. There'll be like positive outcomes or but like, and when looking at what's on offer here, which is nothing, it's obvious that like as far as how the story plays out, first of all, it doesn't matter, but also nobody cares. There isn't any like mother god up there, making sure that since you've been good, you're gonna like the story will be good. It's like that's a little terrifying to be abandoned by that assumption of some kind of I mean it's not really, I'm being a bit rhetorical, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, hope.
Okay, I'll go again since it's just empty. Here's a thought experiment. If everybody just died all of a sudden, you're walking outside in the street and all of a sudden everyone was dead, in this way that you're dead, so to speak, or Tony or whatever, there'd be no way to actually know that because bodies would just do what bodies are doing. They might even report, I am real, I am here, as they currently do. There already isn't a me inside when that claim apparently happens. So there'd actually be no way to recognize any difference. There'd be nothing noteworthy about that. It's just a fiction to even create the distinction.
Yeah, there's nothing to recognize and there's no one to be doing the recognition or having it or going through it.
Sorting people into categories or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all kind of a joke, even that we sit around and talk about it and that it might happen and what would it mean?
Well, that's, yeah, I mean, in a dream, some individuals seem to love doing that. Yeah. In a dream, that seems to be an enjoyable thing to do. To be happy. Yeah. What will my life be like when I'm dead?
Answer: you already are. I mean, and you aren't even there.
Mm.
Everybody thinks they have a life. What is that?
Mm.
You're like having a life. It means basically a story about me. It's like a novel in which I'm the protagonist, you know? It's
That
like
would seem to
never,
be an assumption that's projecting that onto other bodies, though.
yeah. Alexis, do you have you air quotes? Oh, the question already is going to fall apart, but I'll just try to ask it. Do you have the experience of choice apparently on any level? Like when you're ordering food in a restaurant or if somebody calls you and asks you if you want to go out, like, or is there an apparent sense of making choices? Or
No,
is it just like,
there's absolutely no one left at all. There never was anyone to make choice. Yeah. So apparent decision making can seem to happen, but it's everything is already happening without anyone in it. The illusion is that there's an awareness distant from the decision making, and somehow or other, when there's a sense of someone aware of decision making, there's a sort of interpretation that someone is choosing which way to go, and that's the dream. So when there's no sense of any distance at all on any level, no awareness whatsoever, decision making is just organically happening. So and that is already what is. So the distance dream is the dream of distance, and in the sense of distance is a sense of self-awareness. And when that awareness is seeming to happen, there feels like there's some sort of control over what's happening. So when it comes to ordering food or, choosing what to wear or who to call on the phone, it feels like someone's running that somehow. That is totally illusory. But decision making can still appear to happen. So interestingly, liberation of the dream that's not really happening is exposed as a dream of distance. And so in a dream, what might happen is wondering how one could reduce distance, because that sounds like something I want to be liberated from duality, separation, distance, and awareness. And so what might happen in a dream is someone looking around for distancelessness or immediacy, which would only ever seem to apparently perpetuate that dream, even though no one's in it already. This is why no conceptual understanding, practice, or methodology could really seem to ever bring about the end of that distanced dream, which is not real in the first place.
yeah, I wonder if it's really actually wanted. I mean, there's like, can be the thought, that sounds great, but
Yeah.
it's so existential because if it were wanted, it would mean the end of the being of separateness, which is
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's not a thing to be wanted. It's just, it's the end of an illusory wanter.
Right. So to that wanter, it's not actually desirable. As much as that
No,
wanter is organized around his own survival.
it's definitely not wanted by the wanter. I mean, it's not a thing, so it's the end of the so-called dreamer going after things. Yeah, doesn't want its own absence.
When you say that it's the perpetuation of a certain aspect of how the me appears,
An illusory, yeah, perpetuating, yeah.
Yeah, and
There's no real continuity.
yeah, and there's no cause and effect, whether
No,
it's in the dream or not in the dream.
exactly. Which is
Yeah,
why it's said about 2 or 3 times on either side of the sentence, in a dream, illusory, no, not real, no real continuity. Yeah.
like a mantra. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that in a dream that would totally filter out the words in a dream. Yeah.
If you keep saying it, I'm just
Yeah.
joking.
No.
Yeah.
Again, cause and effect here.
Will you talk a little bit more about just whatever appears in relationship to cause and effect?
Well, cause and effect seems to require two separate things for one to affect the other. This was the cause of that. It's a dream that there are separate things which are influencing each other. And what is exposed is that there are no separate things. There are no things at all. So there's just no cause and effect, continuity, consistency, past, present, future, here and there. There's just no separation. There's no dualistic anything. And yet what can appear is a sense of distance and separation and duality. But it's just seemingly revealed as not real. It was just simply an illusory appearance, energetically appearing as things. But there's just no recognition outside of that whole artificial sense of presence. When that apparently collapses, there's just no sense that anything is separate for there to be any causing and affecting. There's just not the way in which there's no one to be recognizing that. Yeah.
This morning when I was hanging out with my friend in the hospital, he accidentally got a little coffee. He loves coffee. And he said the word coffee. So we got him some. And there was this domino effect of his mate. I sent a picture of him because he looked so happy. And his mate just was totally flipped out, of course, naturally, because apparently she believes there's a connection between coffee and his condition, and that he's never supposed to have coffee, and the medical people should know that. And then she asked me to tell the team of people and make sure he doesn't have coffee. And then they all had a whole scenario around. Like it was just like dominoes of cause and effect in just the trippiest way. Like it was like some cascading of a waterfall or something. It was so interesting.
Yeah. 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 So what is totally impractical yet exposed is that there was no separation from any bodies, any speech, any movements, activities, decisions. It all is totally effortlessly, organically happening. It's causeless and singular. There's no continuity. There's no spread outness. There's no distance of different people. This is all totally wholeness. What is? Yeah. Yeah. So that doesn't make it any less or more real than anything else, really. But the cause and effect is the projection of separation, which is illusory. Yeah.
Something that's coming up is and there's no knowing this, there's no knowing what's going on in certain ways. But like, for example, someone that there's an apparent, I'm just gonna permission to speak freely. So, so say there's a friend or loved one or family member, and normally there's just an energetic flow, like things are simple. And then there are periods where, I don't necessarily get completely back to people or whatever, just because there's a billion things. But there'll be the appearance of the energy turning, like turning away or getting riled up, or it's a very energetically, it's a very interesting thing. Like you can just, there's no telling, this is a complete story, there's no telling whether or not that's occurring. But basically, some story will arise, and then the energy shifts. The energy is riled up or some other thing without any kind of talking about it or any kind of checking out anything or whatever. And then what's trippy is that there's no impulse energetically to explore that or reach out to the person and see what's going on or anything like that. Like there's nothing there. There's a tenderness towards all of it, whatever is happening. And sometimes it turns out to be that way. Like the person will say, yeah, this happened and you were a bitch and I was too pissed off to talk to you or whatever, But what's interesting is none of that is happening now. Like there's just love. And this isn't a claiming of anything. I'm just describing something that's appearing and then what's really funny is that it appears to eventually dissolve for them. And I know there's no them, but the energy that was there and riled up, like without the focus or the fixing it or the figuring it out, and no coldness at all. I'm open to, whatever, as far as like if they reach out to me, it wouldn't occur to me to cut anybody off these days or any of that stuff. The people that are around. So anyway, I find that kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's no buying into, there's no one to be buying into anything. So there's just this as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Alexis.
Hello.
I just wanted to say something short. So what seems to be happening here in terms of relationship is that it's not anything is taking so personally anymore. Like I see changes in respondents or, some kind of situation. The reactions are really now like there are no reactions most of the time. Or there are no even thoughts about, the reaction, how it should be or how it shouldn't be, on my side, or on the other person's side. So this seems to be noticing now, being noticed that.
Yeah.
And yet it's somehow much more intimate. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, it's impersonal intimacy. There's no one to be relating. There's no one to be relating to. There's no distance. Therefore, there's nothing separate or even personal. There just is intimacy, immediate intimacy, which is boundless. And reactivity could still appear because there's no rules, but yes, nothing is personal. So,
and it happens also with my kids, with my ex-partner, it happens, but it goes so fast down again. Like there is the reaction and then like a few seconds later, it's just move on. Like it's not thinking about it, it's not coming back. It's
because there's nothing for it to stick to. There's nothing to
Yeah.
hang to anything. There's no one to be hanging on to anything. There's no one to be relating to anything or anyone. So there's no relating to people, but there's no relating to anger and irritation and sadness either. This is all happening organically. So nothing sticks. But there's not even any time for anything to move quickly or slowly, you know.
Yeah.
Nothing seems to be getting completed. No. No. Nothing to be complete, just completion. So freedom is everything, and everything is freedom. It's a word that doesn't mean anything really, but suggestion is that everything is freedom and freedom is everything. Freedom is everything, and yet freedom is not a thing, and therefore no one ever has it, owns it, knows it, or gets it. No one ever finds freedom. There's already no one to be finding or losing freedom. This is just all there is. It's everything. It's everywhere. It's boundless, and yet it's no thing and nowhere. And this is already what is, already everything, already complete. No real time for there to be a process where someone could find it or it could be revealed to. What is exposed timelessly, so not even exposed over and over again, but what is exposed timelessly is that there is no time. There's no continuity, consistency, therefore no process or progress, no where to get to, no direction to move in, because everywhere apparently body goes, this is what is. But it's not a spatial boundlessness, it's boundlessness with no limitations whatsoever. So it's not thingable, it's not objectifiable or subjectifiable. Freedom is this. Nowhere to get to, nothing to navigate, nothing to approach, nothing to be revealed, and no one to be coming or going. This is already everything as it is. Much love. Thank you all. Lovely to see you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Alexis.
Alexis. Thanks, everybody. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see some of you in London and some of you in Europe very soon.